The champagne flutes clinked around me like tiny bells announcing my own execution. I stood in the corner of the grand rosewood ballroom, my cheap polyester uniform scratching against my collarbone, watching crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across marble floors I'd never be wealthy enough to walk on as a guest. The air smelled of imported roses and money, old money, the kind that came with bloodlines and summer homes in the Hamptons. I was invisible here. Just another server with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, another face the elite would forget the moment I refilled their champagne. My fingers trembled as I arranged smoked salmon canapés into perfect rows. 3 months ago, I would have been attending this charity gala as a guest, draped on Marcus's arm, wearing the sapphire dress he'd promised to buy me. 3 months ago, I still believed in fairy tales. More champagne over here. A woman's voice cut through the classical music, sharp, entitled, familiar. My stomach dropped. Sophia, my best friend since college, my former maid of honor, the woman who'd cried on my shoulder about her loneliness, who I'd trusted with every secret, every fear, every dream. She stood 20 feet away in a custom Valentino gown, the color of fresh blood, her arm wrapped possessively around Marcus's waist. Marcus. My Marcus. Except he wasn't mine anymore, was he? Darling, you look magnificent tonight, he murmured into her ear, loud enough for half the room to hear. The same words he'd whispered to me 6 months ago when he proposed on that rain-soaked bridge in Central Park. I turned away, my vision blurring. The tray shook in my hands. A champagne flute wobbled dangerously close to the edge. Careful there. A voice, low, textured like aged whiskey, wrapped around me from behind. I steadied myself, not turning. I'm fine. You don't look fine. The voice moved closer. I could smell him now. Sandalwood and something darker, more dangerous. Tobacco? No. Gunpowder. The thought was absurd, but it stuck in my mind anyway. I said I turned, and the words died in my throat. He stood too close, invading the careful bubble of professional distance servers maintained with guests. Tall, over 6 feet easily, with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on old Italian paintings. Sharp jaw, aristocratic nose, eyes so dark they looked black in the chandelier light. He couldn't have been more than 35, maybe 40, but he carried himself with the gravity of someone who'd lived several lifetimes. His suit probably cost more than my entire year's rent, custom-tailored, midnight black, with cufflinks that caught the light, platinum, maybe white gold. But it wasn't the suit that made my breath catch. It was the way everyone in his vicinity seemed to unconsciously step back, creating an invisible circle of space around him. The way 2 men in dark suits flanked him at a respectful distance, their eyes constantly scanning the room, hands resting near their jacket lapels in a way that suggested weapons. You were about to drop that. He nodded toward my tray. I looked down. The champagne flute had indeed tilted precariously. I righted it quickly, heat flooding my cheeks. Thank you. Do you know who I am? The question should have sounded arrogant. Instead, it was merely curious, almost gentle. Should I? Something flickered in his dark eyes. Amusement? Interest? Most people do. I'm not most people. The words came out sharper than intended. The bitterness of the past 3 months leaked into my voice like poison. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. No. I don't believe you are. Across the room, Sophia's laugh rang out. The same laugh she'd practiced in our shared apartment mirror. The one she claimed made her sound approachable, yet sophisticated. She was showing off her engagement ring to a cluster of society women, the diamond catching light like a tiny sun. My diamond. The one Marcus had bought with money from the investment deal we'd planned together, before he'd stolen my research, my contacts, and presented them as his own work. That's quite a rock, the stranger observed, following my gaze. His voice had cooled several degrees. It should be. I couldn't stop myself. It was bought with stolen money. Stolen? I bit my tongue. What was wrong with me? You didn't confess your troubles to wealthy strangers at events where you were paid to be invisible. I shouldn't have said that. Excuse me, I need to... His hand caught my wrist. Not roughly, but firmly enough to stop me. His fingers were warm, and I felt calluses that didn't belong on a man in a $10,000 suit. What's your name? Elena. The lie came automatically. I'd been using my middle name for work, keeping my first name, Natalia, for the scraps of my old life I still clung to. Elena. He repeated it slowly, like he was tasting wine. I'm Mr. Castellano. A nervous man in a poorly fitted tuxedo rushed over, tablets in hand. Sir, the Hong Kong acquisition requires your signature, and the senator is asking about the contribution. Not now, Michael. The stranger, Castellano, didn't look away from me. The nervous man paled. But sir, the deadline. I said not now. His voice didn't rise, but the temperature in our little corner of the ballroom seemed to drop 10 degrees. The man retreated immediately, nearly stumbling over his own feet. Castellano's attention returned to me, his expression softening fractionally. You were saying about stolen money? It doesn't matter. I pulled my wrist from his grip, suddenly aware that people were watching us. A server didn't stand talking to guests, especially not guests who made grown men stammer. I should get back to work. What if I told you it does matter? He stepped closer, and I caught that scent again. Sandalwood and danger. What if I told you I despise thieves? My heart hammered against my ribs. There was something in his eyes, something that suggested he meant more than simple white-collar crime. This was a man who understood theft on levels I probably couldn't imagine. Then we'd have something in common. The words escaped before I could stop them. Do you know who that woman is? He gestured subtly toward Sophia, who was now posing for photographers, Marcus beaming beside her like he'd won the lottery. The one with your stolen ring? How did you... I pay attention. His eyes held mine. And you're not as invisible as you think you are, Elena. The way he said my fake name made my skin prickle with awareness, like he knew it was a lie but was willing to play along. She was my best friend. The confession tasted bitter, and he was my fiancé, until 3 months ago when I came home early and found them. I stopped abruptly. Why was I telling him this? I'm sorry. You don't want to hear about my problems, on the contrary. He reached into his jacket, and I tensed, but he only pulled out a business card, heavy cardstock, embossed lettering I couldn't read in the dim light. I find your problems very interesting. Why? His smile was all sharp edges now. Because, Elena, that woman stole from someone I care about, and in my world, theft requires compensation. Before I could ask what he meant, Sophia's voice cut through the space between us. Daddy! I watched in slow-motion horror as Sophia glided toward us, Marcus trailing behind her like a well-dressed shadow. She was beaming, completely oblivious to the glacial expression that had settled over Castellano's features. Daddy. No. No, no, no. The universe couldn't be this cruel. Daddy, I've been looking for you everywhere. Sophia air-kissed both of his cheeks, and I saw him stiffen almost imperceptibly. Marcus and I want to introduce you to the Hendersons. They're considering investing in his new firm. Her eyes slid over me without recognition, the way the wealthy looked at servants, dismissive, empty. Sophia. Castellano's voice could have frozen hell. I believe you know this young woman. Sophia's gaze returned to me, narrowing slightly as she tried to place my face. Recognition dawned slowly, followed by a flash of panic, then contempt. Natalia? What are you doing here? So much for my Elena disguise. Working. I lifted my tray slightly, hating how small my voice sounded. Unlike some people, I have to earn my living. Marcus stepped forward, his handsome face twisting into manufactured concern. Nat, I hope there's no hard feelings. What happened between us was unfortunate, but Sophia and I... Unfortunate? The word exploded from me. You stole 2 years of my research, presented it as your own work, got promoted using my contacts, and left me with nothing. Then you started sleeping with my best friend while I was planning our wedding. That's not unfortunate, Marcus. That's calculated. That's quite an accusation, Marcus said smoothly, his lawyer voice activating, and completely false. The research was collaborative, and if you felt I received undue credit... Collaborative? I stepped toward him, the tray forgotten. I have emails, Marcus, drafts with my name on them, timestamps showing I created every algorithm, every projection. Enough! Sophia snapped, her perfect facade cracking. God, Natalia, you're so pathetic. You can't let go, can you? Marcus didn't steal anything. You were just too insecure to accept that he's more talented than you. Sophia. Castellano's voice cut through her rant like a knife. Step back. She blinked, surprised. Daddy, you don't understand. She's been harassing us. I said step back. There was no room for argument in his tone. Sophia retreated, confusion and fear flickering across her face. I'd never seen her afraid of her father before. She'd always painted him as a distant but loving businessman who traveled frequently. But the man standing beside me didn't look distant. He looked lethal. Mr. Castellano? Marcus tried, extending his hand. I apologize for this scene. Natalia has been having a difficult time accepting our relationship. Castellano ignored the outstretched hand. His eyes were fixed on me, and something in them made my breath catch. Not pity. Something darker, more intense. Is what you said true? About the research? Yes. I met his gaze steadily, even as my hands shook. I can prove it. Daddy, she's lying. Sophia grabbed his arm. Marcus and I are getting married. You're going to believe some jealous ex over your own daughter? For a long moment, Castellano said nothing. Then he turned to one of the men in dark suits hovering nearby. Vincent, escort Miss Romano to my car. We're leaving. What? No! Sophia's voice rose shrilly. Daddy, what are you doing? I'm taking you home. Marcus, you'll wait for my call. Don't bother coming to the house until I contact you. He looked at me again, and I saw something calculating in his expression. And you, Natalia, will come with us. What? You said you can prove your accusations. I'd like to see this proof. Sir, I'm working. I can't just leave. You're not working anymore. He nodded to Vincent, who pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Your supervisor has been compensated for your time. Generously. This was insane. I should refuse. I should run. But instead I found myself nodding, drawn by something I couldn't name. Maybe it was the way he'd defended me without hesitation. Maybe it was the possibility of justice I'd thought was lost forever. Or maybe it was the way my skin still tingled where his fingers had touched my wrist. Good. Castellano placed his hand on the small of my back, guiding me toward the exit. His touch burned through the cheap polyester. We have much to discuss. As we walked past Sophia and Marcus, I caught the look of pure fury on Sophia's face, the panic in Marcus's eyes. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd buried me. They had no idea they'd just started a war with the wrong man, and neither did I. The car was nothing like I'd expected. I'd imagined leather seats and tinted windows, maybe a partition between driver and passengers. What I got was a fortress on wheels, a black Mercedes Maybach with windows so dark they looked like obsidian, armor plating I could feel in the way the doors thunked shut, and technology that probably cost more than my childhood home. Vincent drove. Another man, broader, scarred across his left cheekbone, sat in the passenger seat. Both were silent, professional, their eyes constantly checking mirrors. I sat in the back beside Castellano, with Sophia on his other side. The space felt suffocating despite the car's size. Sophia kept shooting me venomous glares while simultaneously trying to appeal to her father with tears that wouldn't quite fall. Daddy, please, you're embarrassing me. Marcus is waiting. Marcus can wait indefinitely for all I care. Castellano's attention was fixed on his phone, fingers moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. In fact, I think Marcus should start looking for a new investor. And a new fiancé. What? Sophia's voice cracked. You can't be serious. I'm always serious when it comes to thieves, Sophia. You know this. He finally looked at her, and the disappointment in his expression made even me flinch. How long have you known what he did? Sophia's mouth opened and closed. He didn't. Natalia is lying. Try again. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. And this time, remember that I've built an empire on detecting lies. The silence that followed felt alive, electric with tension. I pressed myself against the car door, suddenly aware that I was trapped in a very small space with a very dangerous man and his increasingly desperate daughter. 6 months, Sophia finally whispered. I've known for 6 months. My stomach lurched. 6 months. That meant she'd known before Marcus even proposed to me. Before she'd helped me pick out wedding venues and taste wedding cakes. Before she'd held my hand while I cried about my mother's declining health and told me everything would work out. You knew, I breathed, the betrayal hitting me fresh and sharp. You knew the whole time. It wasn't personal, Nat. Sophia wouldn't meet my eyes. Marcus needed the promotion. His family was pressuring him about marriage. And you were always going to be fine. You're smart. You land on your feet. So you destroyed her career and stole her work to help your boyfriend? Castellano's voice could have cut diamonds. And then you had the audacity to flaunt it in front of her while she served drinks at your engagement party. I didn't know she'd be working there. Sophia's tears were real now, streaming down her perfectly made-up face. And it's not like I stole anything myself. Marcus did the... Enough. The single word silenced her completely. Castellano turned to me, his dark eyes softer than they'd been with his daughter. Where do you live, Natalia? Why? Because you're going to show me this proof you mentioned, and then we're going to discuss what happens next. I can email you the files. I don't trust emails. They're too easy to fake, too easy to hack. His gaze held mine. I prefer face-to-face verification. Unless you have somewhere else you need to be? Did I? I glanced at the time on the car's dashboard. 9:47 p.m. My shift at the gala should have ended at midnight, followed by an hour of cleanup. I'd be home by 2, collapse into bed, wake at 6 for my morning shift at the coffee shop. The same exhausting cycle I'd been trapped in since Marcus's betrayal cost me my job, my apartment, my entire life. No, I admitted quietly. I don't have anywhere else to be. Good. He leaned forward, speaking to Vincent. Take us to Miss Romano's residence first. Then we'll head home. We drove through Manhattan in silence, the city lights blurring past those dark windows. I directed Vincent to my current address in Washington Heights, a 4th-floor walk-up in a building where the elevator only worked on Tuesdays, and the hallway smelled perpetually of cooking oil and disappointment. When the car pulled up outside, I saw Sophia's nose wrinkle with disgust. You live here? Not all of us have trust funds, I shot back, reaching for the door handle. Castellano caught my wrist again, that same firm but gentle grip. Vincent will check the building first. Standard protocol. Protocol for what? For keeping people alive. He said it casually, like he was discussing the weather. Vincent and the scarred man, I still didn't know his name, exited the car and disappeared into my building. 5 minutes later, Vincent returned and nodded to Castellano. It's clear, sir. 4th floor, apartment 4C. Single occupant. No signs of surveillance or tampering. How did he know my exact apartment number? I'd only given the address. Castellano must have seen my confusion. I'm thorough, Natalia. It's how I've survived this long. He opened his door, then paused. Sophia, you'll wait here with Marco. But Daddy... Wait, here. He climbed out, then turned back to offer me his hand. I stared at it for a moment. Strong fingers. Those inexplicable calluses. A platinum ring on his right hand engraved with symbols I didn't recognize. Taking his hand felt like accepting something more than assistance from a car. It felt like crossing a threshold. I took it anyway. His grip was warm, steady, and when I stepped onto the cracked sidewalk, he didn't immediately release me. We stood there for a moment, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that seemed almost unconscious. Lead the way, he murmured. The walk up 4 flights of stairs felt eternal. I was acutely aware of him behind me, his presence filling the narrow stairwell. Vincent and Marco flanked us, their eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. We passed Mrs. Chen on the 3rd floor, and her eyes went wide at the sight of the suited men before she scurried into her apartment. My hands shook as I unlocked my door. The apartment was exactly what you'd expect for $800 a month in this neighborhood. A studio barely larger than a closet, with a kitchenette that consisted of a hot plate and a mini fridge, a bathroom where you could sit on the toilet and wash your hands in the sink simultaneously, and a Murphy bed that I'd pulled down that morning and forgotten to fold back up. I wanted to die of embarrassment. Castellano stepped inside, and the space immediately felt even smaller. Vincent remained in the hallway, Marco at the bottom of the stairs. The door clicked shut behind us, and suddenly I was alone with a man who made grown men stammer and his daughter cry with a single word. "It's not much," I said unnecessarily. "It's clean. Organized." His eyes swept the space, taking in my secondhand furniture, the stack of library books on the windowsill, the photograph of my mother on the tiny desk. "You're surviving." "Barely." I moved to my laptop, a 5-year-old model held together with determination and electrical tape. "The files are here, everything I have proving the research was mine." He came to stand behind me, close enough that I could feel his body heat, smell that intoxicating mixture of sandalwood and danger. I tried to focus on pulling up files, but my fingers fumbled over the keyboard. "Breathe, Natalia." His voice was low, intimate in the small space. "I'm not going to hurt you." "How do I know that?" The question came out sharper than intended. "I don't even know who you are, just that your daughter betrayed me, and you apparently have enough money to compensate my supervisor without blinking. For all I know, you're a criminal?" He finished my sentence with dark amusement. "Would that frighten you?" "It should, shouldn't it? Most people would say yes." He reached past me, his arm brushing mine as he clicked on a file folder. "But you're still here. Still showing me your evidence. Either you're very brave or very desperate. Maybe both." I pulled up the first document, my original research proposal, dated 2 years ago, with tracked changes showing Marcus's later suggestions that were really just him taking credit. "Here." This is where it started. For the next hour, Castellano went through everything. He was methodical, asking questions that showed a sharp business mind. He noticed discrepancies I'd missed, timestamps that proved Marcus had accessed my cloud storage without permission, emails where he'd forwarded my work to executives under his own name. "This is damning," he said finally, straightening from where he'd been leaning over my shoulder. "With this evidence, you could sue for intellectual property theft, defamation, fraud, destroy his career before it even begins." I tried. The admission hurt. I filed complaints with our company. But Marcus had already cultivated relationships with the executives. They said it was a he said, she said situation, and suggested I'd simply misunderstood the collaborative nature of our work. 2 weeks later, I was let go for performance issues. "And you didn't fight back? With what?" I spun to face him, anger and exhaustion boiling over. "I had no money for lawyers, no connections. Marcus's family has wealth and influence. I'm nobody. Just some girl from Queens whose mother is dying in a nursing home she can't afford and whose best friend—" My voice cracked. "I thought she loved me. I thought we were family." Something shifted in Castellano's expression. The calculated businessman faded, replaced by something rawer, more human. He reached out, his fingers ghosting along my jaw, tilting my face up to meet his eyes. "You're not nobody, Natalia." His thumb traced my cheekbone, wiping away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "And you're not alone anymore. Why do you care?" I whispered. "You don't know me." "No." His hand moved to the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in my hair, in a gesture that was both possessive and gentle. "But I know what it's like to be betrayed by family, and I know that my daughter has become someone I don't recognize. Someone cruel and entitled. You didn't deserve what they did to you." "What are you going to do?" His smile was all sharp edges again, predatory and dark. "I'm going to give you what you deserve. Justice. Revenge. A life that doesn't require you to work 3 jobs to survive." He paused, his eyes searching mine. "If you'll let me." "I don't understand. Come work for me. Live in my home. I have more than enough space. More than enough resources. You'll have time to rebuild your career, to fight back against Marcus properly. And in exchange," he hesitated, something almost vulnerable crossing his features. "In exchange, you'll remind my daughter what real integrity looks like." It was insane. Moving in with a stranger, accepting help from a man whose name I'd only learned an hour ago. Every rational part of my brain screamed warnings, but rationality had gotten me nowhere. Playing by the rules, trusting the system, believing in fairness, all of it had left me broken and alone in this tiny apartment. working myself to death just to survive. What's your full name? I asked suddenly. Dante. Dante Castellano. He held my gaze steadily. And before you ask what your instincts are already telling you, yes, I'm exactly the kind of man polite society warns you about. I've built my empire on things that would make you run screaming if you knew the details. But I've never lied about what I am, and I've never betrayed someone who trusted me. Sophia trusted you. Sophia took advantage of my love and used it to justify cruelty. There's a difference. His grip on my neck tightened fractionally. I'm offering you a choice, Natalia. Stay here. Keep surviving day by day while they live in luxury on your stolen work, or come with me and take back everything they stole from you. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was a precipice. I could feel it. Once I stepped over this edge, there would be no going back to the safety of anonymity and poverty. But then, what safety had that life really offered me? Okay, I breathed. I'll come with you. The smile that curved his lips was triumphant and possessive, and it should have terrified me. Instead, heat pooled low in my belly, a dangerous warmth I hadn't felt since before Marcus's betrayal. Good girl. His thumb brushed over my lower lip. Pack what you need. We leave in 10 minutes. He released me and stepped back, pulling out his phone to make quiet calls while I stuffed clothes into a duffel bag with shaking hands. I was leaving my life behind for a man I didn't know, walking into a world I didn't understand. But as I zipped the bag closed and turned to find Dante watching me with those dark, intense eyes, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 months. Hope. And something else. Something darker. More dangerous. Desire. Dante's home wasn't a home. It was a statement of power wrapped in stone and iron. We drove for 40 minutes out of the city, Vincent navigating through tree-lined roads where estates hid behind gates and walls. When we finally stopped, it was in front of wrought iron barriers at least 12 feet high, topped with sensors that probably cost more than most people's cars. A guard emerged from a small booth, recognized the car immediately, and the gates swung open without a word exchanged. The driveway seemed endless, winding through manicured grounds where security lights created pools of illumination in the darkness. I caught glimpses of fountains, gardens, structures that might have been guest houses. Then, the main house emerged from the shadows, a modern mansion of glass and stone, 3 stories of sharp angles and floor-to-ceiling windows, lit from within like a lantern. Sophia had been silent the entire drive, curled against her door like a wounded animal. Now she stirred, her voice small. Daddy, I'm sorry. Please, can we just talk about this? Your room. Now. Dante didn't look at her as Vincent opened the door. We'll discuss your future in the morning. But Marcus is no longer your concern. His tone brooked no argument. If he attempts to contact you, Vincent will handle it. Am I clear? Sophia's face crumpled, but she nodded and fled into the house, her heels clicking frantically against marble. I sat frozen in my seat, suddenly overwhelmed by the enormity of what I'd agreed to. This wasn't just wealth. This was a different world entirely. One where guards patrolled grounds and grown women obeyed single-word commands from their fathers. Second thoughts? Dante's voice was soft, almost understanding. About 100 of them. His laugh was unexpected, genuine. Good. That means you're smart. He climbed out and offered his hand again. Come, I'll show you where you'll be staying. The interior made the exterior look modest. The foyer alone was larger than my entire apartment, with a double staircase curving up to the second floor, abstract art on the walls that I recognized from auction catalogs, and marble floors so polished I could see my reflection, wrinkled uniform, tangled hair, exhaustion carved into every line of my face. I looked like exactly what I was. A servant entering a palace. Mrs. Chen will show you to your room, Dante said, and I nearly laughed at the coincidence of the name before realizing it was a different Mrs. Chen, an elegant woman in her 60s who appeared from a side corridor, her smile warm and genuine. Miss Romano, welcome. I've prepared the East Wing guest suite for you. Her accent was crisp, British perhaps. If you'll follow me. I glanced back at Dante, some desperate part of me needing reassurance I wasn't making the biggest mistake of my life. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Possessive, protective, hungry. It should have scared me. Instead, it made my skin flush with awareness. Sleep well, Natalia. Tomorrow we begin fixing what they broke. The guest suite was larger than some apartments I'd toured in the city. A sitting room flowed into a bedroom with a king-sized bed dressed in linens that probably cost thousands of dollars. The bathroom had a soaking tub, a shower with so many jets I couldn't count them, and towels so soft they felt like clouds. Mrs. Chen showed me where everything was. Mentioned that breakfast was served at 7, but I could request it earlier if needed, and disappeared with a gentle reminder to press the intercom button if I required anything. Alone finally, I collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling, my mind spinning. 24 hours ago, I'd been scraping together change for subway fare. Now I was lying in luxury I couldn't have imagined, brought here by a man who radiated danger and made promises of revenge with the same casual ease most people discussed dinner plans. I should call someone. But who? My mother wouldn't remember the conversation anyway. Lost in the fog of dementia, I had no other friends. Sophia had been my only close companion, and she'd poisoned that well thoroughly. No siblings, no cousins I kept in touch with. I was alone, suspended in this strange new reality, and the only anchor I had was a man whose full name I'd learned mere hours ago. Sleep, when it came, was fractured with dreams of dark eyes and dangerous smiles. Morning arrived with gentle knocking on my door. I jerked awake, disoriented by the unfamiliar ceiling, the two soft sheets, the silence that wasn't broken by traffic or neighbors shouting through thin walls. Miss Romano, Mr. Castellano requests your presence for breakfast. Mrs. Chen's voice, polite but firm. I showered quickly, painfully aware that I only had the clothes I'd hastily packed. Cheap jeans, discount store tops, nothing appropriate for whatever the situation demanded. I settled on the least wrinkled option and made my way downstairs, following the smell of coffee and something baking. The dining room had windows overlooking gardens that seemed to stretch forever. Dante sat at the head of a table that could easily seat 20, dressed in charcoal slacks and a black shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and scattered with scars. He was reading something on a tablet, a coffee cup at his elbow, looking simultaneously relaxed and ready to explode into violence. He glanced up as I entered, and something in his expression softened. You slept well? Better than I have in months. The admission felt too vulnerable. Good. He gestured to the place setting beside him, not across the table, but close, within reach. Sit. Eat. Then we have work to do. The breakfast was absurd in its abundance. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs prepared 3 different ways, bacon that actually tasted like bacon instead of cardboard. I filled my plate hesitantly, aware of his eyes tracking my movements. Where's Sophia? I asked, needing to break the silence. Sleeping off her tears, his tone was cold. Or perhaps plotting how to manipulate me into forgiving her. Either way, she's not your concern today. She's your daughter. She's a stranger wearing my daughter's face. He set down the tablet, his full attention on me now. The girl I raised would never have participated in such casual cruelty. Either I failed as a father, or she's chosen to become someone I don't recognize. Either way, the result is the same. The pain in his voice was unexpected. Real. I'd been so focused on my own betrayal that I hadn't considered his. Discovering your child's capacity for cruelty. Having to choose between love and justice. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Don't be. This isn't your fault. He reached across, his fingers brushing mine where they rested beside my coffee cup, and I meant what I said last night. I'm going to help you take back what's yours. How? His smile was predatory. I've already started. Vincent spent the night compiling evidence, cross-referencing your files with Marcus's work product, building an airtight case. By the end of the week, we'll have enough to bury him professionally. And legally? That depends on how far you want to take this. His thumb traced circles on my palm, a gesture that seemed absent-minded, but sent electricity shooting up my arm. I have lawyers who specialize in intellectual property theft. They're expensive, but they're vicious, or, he paused, something dangerous glinting in his eyes. I have other methods. Less legal, more effective. What kind of methods? The kind that ensure Marcus never works in your field again. The kind that make him understand what it means to steal from someone under my protection. His grip tightened fractionally. But that's your choice, Natalia. I won't force you down a path you're not comfortable with. I should have been horrified, should have recognized the implicit threat, the suggestion of violence or coercion, but all I felt was a dark satisfaction. A hunger for justice that had been building in me since the day I'd walked in on Marcus and Sophia tangled in my bed. I want him to lose everything, I heard myself say. The way I did. I want him to know what it feels like to have your entire life dismantled by someone you trusted. Then that's what you'll have. Dante lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that felt like a brand. I promise you that. A throat cleared from the doorway. Vincent stood there, his expression carefully neutral. Sir, Marcus Thorne is at the gate. He's demanding to see Miss Sophia. Something feral crossed Dante's face. Is he now? Security has him detained. He became aggressive when they refused entry. Did he? Dante released my hand slowly, like it cost him effort. Have them bring him to my study, and Vincent, make sure he understands this isn't a request. Vincent's smile was sharp. Understood, sir. After he left, Dante turned back to me. Would you like to be present for this conversation? My heart hammered. What are you going to do? Nothing that will land me in prison, if that's your concern. He stood, offering his hand. But I think it's time Marcus understood exactly who he's dealing with, and more importantly, who he stole from. I took his hand, letting him pull me to my feet. We were standing close, closer than necessary, and I could see flecks of amber in his dark eyes. Could count the subtle lines at the corners that suggested he smiled more than his reputation might indicate. Why are you doing this? The question escaped before I could stop it. Really? It can't just be about Sophia. No. His hand came up to cup my face, his touch achingly gentle for a man who radiated such danger. It's about you, Natalia. From the moment I saw you in that ballroom, trying so hard to be invisible while your eyes burned with pain and rage. I knew I needed to know your story, and then, when I learned what they'd done to you, his jaw clenched. No one destroys something beautiful and walks away unpunished. Not in my world. I'm not beautiful. The words felt pulled from somewhere deep and damaged. I'm broke and exhausted and... You survived. His thumb brushed my lower lip and my breath caught. You kept fighting even when the system failed you, even when the people you loved betrayed you. You worked 3 jobs rather than give up. That's not just beautiful, Natalia. That's steel wrapped in silk. That's dangerous in all the best ways. The air between us felt charged, electric. I could smell his cologne, see the pulse beating at his throat, feel the heat radiating from his body. This was insane. I'd known him less than 24 hours. He was Sophia's father, a man who casually mentioned illegal methods and kept armed guards. But when he looked at me like that, like I was something precious he intended to protect and possess in equal measure, rationality scattered like dust. We should go, I managed, my voice husky, before Marcus leaves. Yes. But he didn't move, his eyes searching mine. But first, I need you to understand something. Once we do this, once we start this war, there's no going back to your old life. Marcus won't forgive this, neither will Sophia. You'll be choosing sides, and my side, he hesitated. My side is complicated, dangerous. Are you sure this is what you want? I thought of my tiny apartment, my 3 jobs, the way Marcus and Sophia had laughed at my pain. I thought of every night I'd cried myself to sleep. Every morning I'd woken up wondering if I was strong enough to keep going. I'm sure. I met his gaze steadily. Show me what they really stole from me. Show me what justice looks like in your world. His smile was slow, dangerous, full of dark promise. With pleasure. He laced his fingers through mine and led me toward his study, and with each step, I felt the last pieces of my old life falling away. I was walking into fire, I knew that. But maybe, just maybe, I'd emerge from the flames forged into something stronger. Something they'd regret ever crossing. Dante's study was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined with volumes that looked actually read rather than decorative. A massive desk dominated the space, its surface clear except for a laptop and a crystal decanter of amber liquid. But what captured my attention was Marcus, standing between two of Dante's security men, his expensive suit rumpled, his perfect hair disheveled. He looked scared. Good. Mr. Thorne. Dante's voice was cordial, almost pleasant, which somehow made it more threatening. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I didn't have much choice, Marcus shot back, trying for bravado but not quite achieving it. His eyes found me standing beside Dante, and confusion flickered across his face. Natalia, what are you doing here? She lives here now, Dante said simply, moving to pour himself a drink. He didn't offer one to Marcus, under my protection, which presents an interesting problem for you. I don't understand. Marcus glanced between us, and I watched the moment comprehension dawned. The way his face paled, how his throat worked as he swallowed. You and her, but Sophia said you were just her father. She never mentioned, what my daughter chooses to share about my business is her prerogative. Dante settled into his chair with the lazy grace of a predator. But let's not dance around the issue, Marcus. You stole from Natalia intellectual property, career opportunities, 2 years of her life, and in doing so, you stole from someone now under my protection. That's problematic. I didn't steal anything, Marcus's voice rose. The work was collaborative, if there were misunderstandings about credit. Vincent. Dante didn't raise his voice. Vincent stepped forward with a tablet, thrusting it toward Marcus. These are time-stamped files showing Miss Romano's original work. These are your submissions to your company, dated weeks later. These are emails where you forwarded her proprietary research without permission. And these, he tapped the screen, are communications where you explicitly took credit for algorithms you didn't create. Marcus's face went from pale to ashen. Where did you get those? I'm very good at acquiring information, Dante said mildly. It's part of what makes me successful. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign a document admitting to the theft. You're going to resign from your position with a statement crediting Natalia with the research you stole, and you're going to pay her restitution for lost wages and opportunities. That's insane, Marcus stumbled backward. I'll be ruined. No one in the industry will hire me, yes. Dante's smile was cold. That's rather the point. You can't do this. I'll fight back, Marcus's eyes hardened. I'll go to the police. Tell them you're threatening me, coercing me. With what evidence? Dante leaned forward, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. You came here of your own volition, demanding to see my daughter. My security footage will show you became aggressive at the gate. No one threatened you, Marcus. We're simply having a conversation about ethics and consequences. Sophia will never forgive you for this, Marcus spat, desperation leaking into his voice. She loves me. My daughter is 26 years old and has made poor choices, Dante said flatly. But she's still my daughter. You, however, are nothing to me except a problem to be solved. So you have 2 options. Sign the documents, make your public confession, and walk away with your physical health intact. Or refuse, and discover exactly how far my reach extends. The threat hung in the air, unsubtle and terrifying in its simplicity. This is illegal, Marcus tried weakly. Probably. Dante shrugged. But proving it would require you to admit why you're here, which means admitting what you stole. And I have better lawyers than you could ever afford, Marcus. More importantly, I have less to lose. Can you say the same? I watched Marcus's face cycle through emotions. Rage, fear, calculation. His eyes kept darting to me, and I saw the moment he decided to try a different tactic. Nat, please. He stepped toward me, and immediately Vincent moved to intercept. You don't understand what you're doing. This man is dangerous. He's involved in things that could destroy you. I made mistakes, yes, but I never meant to hurt you. We can work this out. Just the 2 of us. The 2 of us? The laugh that escaped me was bitter. Like when you worked things out with Sophia in my bed? or when you work things out with my research, presenting it as your own. No, Marcus. We're done working things out. You're making a mistake, he hissed, his mask slipping to show the ugly calculation beneath. He'll use you and throw you away. That's what men like him do. Men like me, Dante said softly, dangerously, keep our promises, which is more than can be said for you. He stood, buttoning his jacket with deliberate precision. You have until 5 o'clock today to decide. Sign the documents Vincent will send you, or face the consequences. And Marcus? If you attempt to contact Natalia, Sophia, or anyone in my household again without permission, the offer expires. Are we clear? Marcus looked at me one last time, something pleading in his eyes. Once, that look might have moved me. Once I'd loved this man enough to plan a future with him. Now all I felt was cold satisfaction. Get him out of my house, Dante said, and Vincent and his companion escorted Marcus from the room, his protests fading as they dragged him down the hallway. Silence settled over the study. I stood frozen, my hands trembling with adrenaline and something darker. Vindication, maybe, or the first taste of revenge. It felt better than I'd imagined. It felt like power. Are you all right? Dante's voice, suddenly close behind me. I don't know. I turned to face him. I should feel guilty, shouldn't I? He looked terrified. He should be terrified. Dante's hand settled on my waist, possessive and warm. He hurt you, used you, stole from you. And he was stupid enough to think there would be no consequences. But what you're doing, it's not exactly legal, is it? Very little of what I do falls neatly into legal categories, Natalia. His other hand came up to tilt my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. I operate in gray spaces, in the gaps where the law is too slow or too corrupt to provide justice. Does that frighten you? It should. Every rational part of me knew it should. No, I whispered, it doesn't. His eyes darkened with something that made heat pool low in my belly. Dangerous girl. Don't you know you should run from men like me? I'm tired of running. The confession felt pulled from somewhere deep. I'm tired of being weak, of letting people take from me. Maybe I need to learn how to be dangerous. Is that what you want? His thumb traced my lower lip, the gesture now familiar, intimate, to learn how to bite back? Yes. The word hung between us, loaded with more than revenge, more than justice. It felt like a promise, a surrender, a declaration of war against the person I used to be. Dante's control, which I'd watched him wield like a weapon against Marcus, seemed to fracture. His grip on my waist tightened, pulling me flush against him, and I felt the evidence of his desire, hard and undeniable against my hip. Natalia. My name was a warning, a question, a plea. I should pull away. This was too fast, too intense, too complicated. He was Sophia's father, a criminal by his own admission, a man who could destroy lives with a phone call. But I'd spent 3 months being careful, being good, playing by rules that had only left me broken. And right now, with his body pressed against mine and his dark eyes burning into me, I didn't want to be careful anymore. I rose on my toes and kissed him. He froze for half a second, surprised maybe, or giving me one last chance to reconsider. Then he made a sound low in his throat and took control, one hand fisting in my hair, the other splayed across my back, holding me captive as he devoured my mouth with a hunger that should have terrified me. It didn't. It ignited something I'd thought Marcus had extinguished. Want, need, the electric thrill of being desired like I was something precious and necessary. Dante walked me backward until my spine hit the bookshelf, books pressing into my shoulder blades as he pinned me there with his body. His kiss was nothing like Marcus's careful, calculated affection. This was possession, claim, a brand marking me as his in ways that went beyond words. Tell me to stop, he growled against my lips, his hand sliding beneath my shirt to splay against bare skin. Tell me this is insane and we need to slow down. Don't stop. I pulled him closer, my fingers tangling in his hair. Don't you dare stop, he groaned. A sound of surrender and triumph mixed together, and captured my mouth again. His hand moved higher, finding the curve of my breast, and I gasped against his lips. It had been so long since anyone touched me like this. like I was wanted, needed, worshipped. A knock at the door shattered the moment. We sprang apart, both breathing hard. Dante's hair was disheveled from my fingers, his lips swollen, his eyes wild with desire barely held in check. I probably looked worse. Shirt askew, face flushed, looking thoroughly ravaged. "What?" Dante's voice was rough, dangerous. "Sir, Miss Sophia is asking to see you." Mrs. Chen's voice, diplomatic but firm. "She's quite insistent." Dante closed his eyes, visibly fighting for control. When he opened them again, the careful mask had slipped back into place, though his eyes still burned when they met mine. "Tell her I'll be there in 10 minutes. He waited until Mrs. Chen's footsteps faded, then turned back to me. "We need to talk about this, about what just happened. Do we?" I straightened my shirt with shaking hands. "Seems pretty clear what happened, Natalia." He stepped closer but didn't touch me, as if he didn't trust himself. "I'm not a good man. I've done things that would make you look at me differently. And you're vulnerable right now, hurt and angry and what?" Anger spiked through me. "You think I kissed you because I'm damaged? Because I'm so desperate for affection I'll throw myself at the first man who shows me kindness? No." His jaw clenched. "But I think you deserve someone better than a man who builds empires on other people's fear. Someone who can give you a normal life, a safe life." "I don't want normal." The words exploded from me. "Normal got me betrayed and broken. Safe got me nowhere. Maybe I want dangerous. Maybe I want someone who looks at me the way you do, like I'm something worth burning the world down for." The silence that followed felt alive, electric. "You don't know what you're asking for," Dante said finally, his voice low and raw. "Then show me." I stepped closer, emboldened by the hunger still visible in his eyes. "Show me what it means to be yours. Because right now, that feels like the only real thing in my life." His control snapped. He crushed me against him, his mouth finding mine again with bruising intensity. This kiss was different, less exploration, more claim. His hands mapped my body like he was memorizing every curve, every hollow, branding me with his touch. "Mine," he growled against my throat, teeth scraping sensitive skin. "Say it, Natalia. Say you're mine. Yours." The word came out breathless, desperate. "I'm yours." Another knock, more insistent this time. "Sir, Miss Sophia is becoming quite upset." "Tell her I'm busy," Dante called out, not taking his eyes off me. "Tell her I'll see her when I'm damn well ready." He kissed me again, slower this time, thorough, leaving no doubt about his intentions. When he finally pulled back, we were both trembling. "Tonight," he promised, his thumb tracing my swollen lips. "Tonight, we finish this conversation. But right now, I need to deal with my daughter before she destroys something expensive." I nodded, not trusting my voice. He kissed me one more time, quick, possessive, then straightened his clothes and walked toward the door. He paused at the threshold, looking back at me with eyes that promised dark, delicious things. "Don't leave this house today, Natalia. Stay where I know you're safe." It should have sounded controlling, suffocating. Instead, it felt like protection, like being valuable enough to guard. "I'll be here," I promised. His smile was pure sin. "Good girl." Then he was gone, and I was left alone in his study. My lips bruised from his kisses, my body burning with unfulfilled desire. My mind reeling from how completely my life had transformed in less than 24 hours. I'd come here for revenge, for justice. But now, with Dante's taste still on my lips and his possession branded into my skin, I was beginning to suspect I'd found something far more dangerous, something that felt like home. The afternoon passed in a strange suspension of reality. I wandered Dante's house like a ghost, exploring rooms that seemed designed for a different life. A library with first editions I was afraid to touch. A conservatory filled with orchids that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to be. A gym that looked like it belonged in a professional training facility. Mrs. Chen found me in the sunroom, staring out at gardens where fountains splashed and stone pathways wound through perfectly manicured hedges. "Miss Romano, Mr. Castellano asked me to give you this. She handed me a sleek black credit card, my name already embossed on it. For anything you might need, clothes, personal items, whatever makes you comfortable. I stared at the card like it might bite me. I can't accept this. Mr. Castellano was quite insistent. Her smile was knowing, almost maternal. He's not a man who makes gestures lightly, dear. When he decides to protect someone, he commits fully. That's what worries me. I turned the card over in my fingers. I don't understand what he wants from me. Perhaps he simply wants to see you happy. Mrs. Chen patted my shoulder gently. I've worked for Mr. Castellano for 15 years. I've seen him be many things, ruthless, calculating, terrifying when necessary. But I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Heat crept up my neck. We barely know each other. Sometimes knowing takes years. Sometimes it takes a single moment. She moved toward the door, then paused. Miss Sophia is having lunch in her room. Mr. Castellano thought you might prefer to avoid an encounter today, thoughtful of him. He can be, when he chooses. Her expression softened. Give him a chance, Miss Romano. Not many people see the man beneath the reputation. But I think you might be one of the few who could. After she left, I sat with the credit card, turning it over and over. This was moving too fast. I should be focused on reclaiming my career, on making Marcus pay for what he'd done. Instead, I was obsessing over the taste of Dante's kiss, the possessive growl in his voice when he'd called me his. My phone buzzed, the cheap prepaid I'd been using since I couldn't afford my old plan. A text from an unknown number. Marcus signed the documents. Confession will be public by Monday. Your name will be restored. Vincent. I stared at the message, waiting for the rush of victory, the satisfaction of justice served. It came, but weaker than expected, overshadowed by the memory of Dante's hands on my skin, his promise of tonight hanging between us like unfinished business. What was wrong with me? I should be celebrating. Instead, I was counting hours until I could see him again. Evening arrived with the subtle shift of light through windows, the house settling into quieter rhythms. I'd showered and changed into the least wrinkled clothes I owned, wishing desperately I had something better, something that matched the luxury surrounding me. A knock on my suite door made my heart jump. Vincent stood there, his expression professionally neutral. Mr. Castellano requests your presence for dinner. Private dining room, second floor. Miss Sophia is dining separately. She's been informed she's not to disturb you or Mr. Castellano this evening. The walk to the dining room felt endless. Vincent led me through hallways lined with art I couldn't identify but knew was priceless, past rooms that spoke of wealth accumulated over generations. We stopped at double doors of dark wood, and Vincent knocked once before opening them. The private dining room was intimate. A table set for two, candles providing most of the light, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens where lights now glowed like captured stars. And Dante, standing by those windows, his profile sharp and beautiful against the darkness beyond. He turned as I entered, and the hunger in his eyes made my breath catch. Natalia. He moved toward me, not rushing but purposeful. You look beautiful. I look like I'm wearing 3-day-old clothes because that's all I own. The words came out more bitter than intended. Then we'll fix that tomorrow. He took my hand, leading me to the table. Tonight, I just want to talk to you. Really talk. Without interruptions or complications. Dinner was served by staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Wine that probably cost hundreds. Food that tasted like art, but I barely noticed. Too focused on Dante across from me. The candlelight casting shadows across his face, making him look dangerous and devastating in equal measure. Tell me about your mother, he said suddenly. The question caught me off guard. Why? Because she's important to you. Because I want to know what made you into someone who fights even when the world tells you to give up. So I told him. About my mother, who'd raised me alone after my father left, who'd worked 2 jobs to put me through college, who'd sacrificed everything so I could have opportunities she never did, about the early onset dementia that had stolen her piece by piece, leaving me with medical bills I couldn't pay, and a mother who sometimes didn't recognize me anymore. The nursing home costs $4,000 a month, I admitted, staring at my wine glass. I was barely managing before Marcus destroyed my career. Now I'm 3 months behind on payments. They've been patient, but... My voice cracked. I'm terrified they'll kick her out. That I'll have to move her somewhere cheaper where they won't care if she's comfortable or scared, or they won't. Dante's voice was firm, absolute. Vincent already contacted the facility this afternoon. Your account is current, and there's enough in escrow to cover the next 5 years. I stared at him, not comprehending. What? Your mother's care is handled. You don't need to worry about it anymore. I can't. Dante, that's too much. I can't accept. It's done. He reached across the table, capturing my hand. You can pay me back if it makes you feel better. But frankly, Natalia, 5 years of nursing home care is less than I spend on car maintenance. It's nothing to me, but it's everything to you. So please, let me do this. Tears burned my eyes. No one had ever... Marcus had known about my mother's situation, had promised to help once we were married, but he'd never actually done anything. Had always had excuses why now wasn't a good time. Dante had known me for 1 day, and had simply fixed it. Why? The word came out broken. Why are you doing all this? He stood, moving around the table to pull me to my feet. His hands framed my face, thumbs wiping away tears that had started falling without my permission. Because from the moment I saw you in that ballroom, something in me recognized something in you. Pain, strength, the determination to survive even when survival seems impossible. His voice dropped, raw and honest. I've built my empire on reading people, Natalia, on seeing what they hide, what they need, what they'll do when pushed. And when I looked at you, I saw someone who deserved better than the hand life dealt her. That's not an answer. No? His smile was sad, self-aware. Then try this. I'm a selfish man who wants you in ways that probably aren't healthy, who looks at you and sees something worth protecting, worth possessing, worth burning down the world for if necessary. Is that honest enough? My heart hammered against my ribs. You barely know me. I know enough. His forehead pressed against mine, his breath warm on my lips. I know you're stronger than you think. I know you taste like hope and feel like redemption. I know that when I touch you, something broken in me starts to heal. Dante? I know this is insane, he continued, almost desperately. I know I should let you rebuild your life. Find someone appropriate, someone safe. But I can't, Natalia. The thought of you leaving, of you belonging to anyone else, it makes me want to lock every door in this house and keep you here where I know you're safe and mine. That's, I should say crazy, should say possessive and unhealthy, and all the things my rational mind knew this was. Perfect, I finished instead, and kissed him. This time, there were no interruptions, no knocks on doors or obligations pulling us apart. Dante made a sound low in his throat and deepened the kiss, his hands mapping my body with increasing urgency. He walked me backward until I hit the wall beside the window, the cool glass at my back contrasting with the heat of his body pressed against my front. Tell me to stop, he growled against my throat, teeth grazing sensitive skin. Tell me you need time, space, sanity. I need you. I pulled his shirt free from his waistband, my hands finding bare skin, exploring the ridges of muscle and the scars that told stories I didn't yet know. I need to feel alive again. I need to forget everything except this moment, this feeling. He captured my mouth again, swallowing my words, his hands working at the buttons of my shirt with single-minded focus. Cool air hit my skin as he peeled the fabric away, his eyes darkening as he took in the sight of me. Beautiful, he murmured, his fingers tracing the curve of my collarbone, the swell of my breast. So fucking beautiful. He kissed me again, slower now, thorough, his hands exploring with reverent attention. I'd thought Marcus knew my body, but this was different. Dante touched me like he was learning a language, memorizing every response, every place that made me gasp or tremble. When he finally lifted me, my legs wrapping around his waist, carrying me toward what I assumed was his bedroom through a connecting door, I felt no fear, only anticipation, desire. the bone-deep certainty that this was exactly where I was supposed to be. His bedroom was all dark wood and masculine simplicity, dominated by a massive bed that he laid me on with surprising gentleness. He stood at the edge, his eyes traveling over me in a way that made me feel exposed and powerful simultaneously. "Last chance, Natalia." His voice was strained, control hanging by a thread. "After this, you're mine. No going back, no pretending this was a mistake. Mine." The possessiveness should have scared me. Instead, it made heat pool low in my belly, made me reach for him with trembling hands. "Then make me yours," I whispered. "Show me what it means to belong to someone who won't betray me." Something broke in his expression: relief, triumph, hunger. He came down over me, his body covering mine, and proceeded to show me exactly what it meant to be claimed by Dante Castellano. Hours later, I lay in his arms, my body deliciously exhausted, marked with evidence of his possession in the form of bruises on my hips, my throat, places no one else would see. Dante's fingers traced lazy patterns on my bare back, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. "What happens now?" I asked into the comfortable silence. "Now, you live here. You rebuild your career with my resources, my connections. Marcus's confession goes public Monday, and you'll have job offers by Tuesday." His arms tightened around me. "And you stay in my bed, in my life, where I can keep you safe." "What about Sophia?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Sophia made her choices. She can continue living here under strict conditions, or she can leave and make her own way. Either way, she no longer has access to you, to information about you, or to my unconditional support. She'll learn what it means to face consequences, even if that lesson comes late. And us?" I tilted my head to look at him. "What are we?" His smile was possessive, protective, full of dark promise. "Mine and yours, my obsession, my addiction, my redemption. And you." He rolled me beneath him, his body pressing mine into the mattress in a way that made my breath catch. "You're my dangerous girl who learned to bite back. My beautiful survivor who chose the devil over safety." "Not a devil," I corrected, pulling him down for a kiss. "My devil. There's a difference." "Yes," he agreed against my lips, his hands already mapping my body again. Desire reigniting between us, there is. 6 months later, the courtroom was packed with reporters, industry professionals, and curious onlookers. I sat in the front row, dressed in a power suit Dante had insisted on buying me, watching as Marcus's sentencing was read. 18 months probation, community service, permanent notation on his professional record. His reputation in shambles, his engagement to Sophia broken after she'd finally realized he'd been using her for her father's connections. It should have felt like victory. It did, in a way, but mostly, it just felt like closure. Dante's hand found mine, his thumb stroking my knuckles in that now familiar gesture. He'd been my rock through everything, the legal battles, the media attention when my story went public, the slow process of rebuilding my career and my confidence. More than that, he'd been my partner, my lover, my home. "Ready to go?" he murmured as the courtroom began to empty. "Almost." I turned to him, studying his face, this man who'd crashed into my life like a hurricane and changed everything. "I need to tell you something." Concern flickered in his eyes. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." I took a breath, letting the words come. "I love you. I know it's only been 6 months. I know our relationship started in chaos and revenge and all the unhealthy things people warn you about. But I love you, Dante. I love your darkness and your protection, and the way you look at me like I'm the most precious thing in your world." His expression transformed. Surprise, joy, something almost vulnerable. "Natalia, I know you might not feel the same. I love you." The words came out fierce, certain. "I've loved you since that night in the ballroom when you looked at me with eyes full of pain and rage. I've loved you through every moment of watching you grow stronger, watching you reclaim everything they took. I love you so much it terrifies me, because I've never been this vulnerable with anyone." He pulled me to my feet, his arms wrapping around me, and I felt the rightness of it settle into my bones. This man, this dangerous, beautiful, complicated man, was mine, and I was his. Marry me, he said suddenly, pulling back to look at me. Not because you need my protection anymore. You don't. Not because of revenge or convenience or any practical reason. Marry me because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Because you're the only person who's ever seen past my reputation to the man underneath. Because I want to wake up every day for the rest of my life knowing you're mine. Tears blurred my vision, but these were different from the ones I'd cried 6 months ago. These were joy, hope, the overwhelming certainty that I'd somehow stumbled into exactly where I was meant to be. Yes, I breathed. Yes, I'll marry you. His kiss tasted like promise and forever. And when we finally broke apart, the courtroom had emptied except for Vincent, who stood by the door with what might have been a smile on his usually stoic face. Should we tell Sophia? I asked as we walked toward the exit, my hand secure in his. Eventually. Dante's expression hardened slightly. She's been working on herself, seeing a therapist, trying to understand how she became someone capable of such cruelty. Maybe one day we'll have a relationship again. But right now, you're my priority. Our future is my priority. I leaned into him, breathing in the scent that had become home. Sandalwood and safety, danger and devotion. Our future sounds perfect. As we stepped out into the sunlight, reporters shouting questions we ignored, Vincent clearing a path to the waiting car, I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago. Broken, desperate, invisible. That woman was gone, burned away in the fire of Dante's possession and my own refusal to stay defeated. In her place was someone stronger, someone who'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous choice was also the right one. I'd come to that ballroom looking for survival. I'd found salvation instead, wrapped in expensive suits and deadly promises, wearing the face of my best friend's father, and carrying the soul of someone who understood what it meant to be broken and choose to heal anyway. I love you, Dante murmured, as the car door closed behind us, sealing us away from the world. I love you too, I replied, and meant it with every scarred, healed, transformed piece of my heart. The girl who'd been betrayed was gone. In her place was a woman who'd learned to bite back, to claim what was hers, to love a devil and be loved by him in return. And that, I thought as Dante's lips found mine again, was the best revenge of all.